Are there, everyone knows everyone in this room, on this panel. There's Alok Tandon, who heads Inox. There's Mukesh Bhatt, who pretty much heads Bollywood. There is Sajid Khan, who heads Twitter and Facebook. There's Guneet Munga, who is pretty much the flag bearer of independent cinema. Any questions from the audience to start with? Vishek, question from you?
I had a question for Sajid. Sir, your last film, Humshakal, 65 crores.
64. Yeah.
And that's huge for a star cast that the film had. But it had made money. Why haven't you made a film after Humshakal?
I'll tell you why, sir. It's been 3 years. The perception of Humshakals was so bad that you were made to believe, and honest to God, that it's the worst film ever made. Largely thanks to, social media and Twitter and some part of the media. Plus, the hero of the film also spoke against it. So, वो perception इतना खराब हुआ film का कि it's one of the worst films ever made. It rates on TV, it plays back on TV every week. I think TV is a very strong medium to judge the actual real life of a film. बहुत सारी फिल्में होती हैं जो बिजनेस करती हैं बॉक्स ऑफिस पर टीवी पे कभी नजर नहीं आती है बिकॉज दोज मूवीज वर नेवर मेंट फॉर फैमिली वॉचिंग ऑडियंसेस ऑन टीवी परहैप्स हमशक्ल्स प्लेज बैक एवरी वीक एंड टू थिंक अबाउट इट 64 is not a bad number if you compare it today. But तभी क्या हो रहा था? People were expecting all those movies to do 100. 100 was like a silver jubilee benchmark. So it did not do 100. So technically, it's a flop, but not a disaster the way it was made out to be. I took 3 years because I took 1.5 years to write a script, which eventually did not get made because the script was based on the Korean film where the Korean people had to take the rights back in that stipulated period of time. Then I started working. I've worked on about 4 scripts. Hopefully, in 2018, back-to-back 2 films will start, sir. But it's helped me a little bit to understand the curves of the business, to understand what the audience really wants. And that sometimes when you're just working all the time, you're in the middle of it, you really don't know what's working and what's not working. You just keep working. When you just stand at the side, you understand things a little bit better. The mist clears, and that's, I think, what's happened.
Also, I'm a single screen owner and all your films have done really well in our theater. I'm just waiting for you to just come on.
Thank you, sir. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm a huge supporter of single screens. And मेरे दिल से आपका single screen हमेशा चलता रहे, sir. Thank you, sir.
No, I was just waiting for Siddharth now. No. Yeah.
Sid has come.
You're on time.
I'm before time.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Sid.
Hi, Sid.
You're on time. Yes, I know. Before time. Yeah, everybody's before time.
Hello, sir.
You're all lost.
Wait.
I should say hello to you properly.
Thank you. Super. I think where we have the numbers, we have the audience that's ready. We'll get to the questions after the session now. We're just waiting for Siddharth and Amrita to show up. Not that you guys are late. We just started a little early. We were like far too eager. Just absolutely on time. Absolutely on time, guys. It's only inevitable that I start with a massive elephant in this room, okay? And it's an elephant that's walking. I'm talking about the changes in the economics.
You're talking about my weight?
No, something much bigger in size. And the elephant is actually marching from Baahubali's army. And that happened in 2017. There's a movie that came out that shattered every single myth that we've known about mainstream filmmaking sitting here in Bombay. The one thing is that the movie has to have a huge star. It did not. The second thing is the movie has to have great songs. I don't remember any song of Baahubali. I don't know if you guys do. And the third thing, that a film cannot be a pan-India hit. It cannot do as well in the south as it does in the north. It cannot do as well in the east as it does in the west. And of course, across the board. Did Baahubali, I'm gonna do a full round here on this one before we even begin, the officially begin the panel discussion. Did Baahubali shock you guys? Starting with you, Siddharth. And what did you make of it?
The scale of the success definitely did shock me, at least personally. I knew it was going to be a massive hit. The second part. The first
Yes.
part, I think, shocked everyone,
Huh.
except probably Rajamouli, which is why he had the faith and the courage and the conviction to do what he did. But we talk about crossover movies and Indian films crossing over to a non-Indian audience. This is one film that crossed over from every state of India to the other.
Right.
Actually, the only film that ever did that. Because we've always looked at movies in India as being regional
Right.
or Hindi movies or otherwise English films. And we've aspired to crossover. This actually opened our eyes to a true crossover Indian film that did not need an out-of-India diaspora audience to watch it at all. Every bit of that almost 2,000 crores of box office has come from an Indian diaspora audience.
Right.
And we haven't had to rely on a non-Indian audience for that, which a lot of our other movies, like for example, Dangal, has seen a Chinese audience in China responding to it. But Baahubali was the one film that had a crossover across states. And I think that tells us the power of Indian cinema and not Hindi cinema, Tamil cinema, or Telugu cinema,
Right.
and what we can achieve if we are able to make a film that is able to reach every Indian rather than a Hindi audience or a Tamil audience or a Bengali audience and so on.
Right. Alok, coming to you, there is a certain inventory, there's a certain thought in terms of how much a film makes, but 1,500 crore, clearly no theatre owner would have thought of that kind of a number. What led to it, and did you expect it?
Oh, well, yes, it was expected. It was expected to be a great success, and we as multiplex operators knew that this movie will do well. And I think so we converted our multiplexes into single screens because all shows, all screens, all theaters were running nothing but Baahubali. And that was the pull of this movie. And as what Siddharth said is absolutely right. It was a true Indian movie. It was not a regional movie. It was not a Hindi movie. It was not a Telugu movie. It was an Indian movie where everybody wanted to see it, and they were waiting for it. In the industry, people come to know what's called the buzz of the movie, how the movie will do, how it will perform. And this was one movie which lived up to its expectations or even beat the expectations by getting in footfalls starting from early morning. I can know 7:38 we had our first shows till late at night. And people were literally, if I can use the word, dying to get a ticket of this particular movie. It was an all-round success. You talked about no songs, nobody else over there, but look at the sets, the way the story was portrayed. So at the end of the day, what became, and what we all say is content is king, and the way it was portrayed was nothing but outstanding.
I'm sorry, sir, may I ask one question, sir? Sir, but Bahubali ke time pe, even the multiplexes rates were exorbitantly high, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, unreal high, like even
Right.
up to 2,500 rupees a ticket.
Well, okay, I don't know 2,500, but I can talk about my multiplex. Our average ticket price, okay, let me, if I can just keep Bahubali aside and just talk about the rates which you just mentioned. The average ticket price of Inox Leisure Limited, which is a public listed company, last year was 177 rupees. And which means the 2,500 which you are saying, which we never charged, maximum we went up for Baahubali in a recliner seat. In a recliner seat with all the services was 1,500. That too only in not more than 200 seats across the 1,20,000 seats which we have inventory of.
1,500 rupees.
In 200 seats. And which, again, I don't think is bad. Because look at the hype, look at the rentals we pay, look at the ambience we give. That's a separate story altogether. But even if I look at the total Bahubali average ticket price, would not be across our entire chain more than 180 to 190 rupees maximum.
I mean, no matter what you charge, the fact is that people paid. People went to the theater
Yeah,
and they bought those tickets.
absolutely.
I mean, Mr. Bhatt, does it surprise you that it takes a filmmaker from Hyderabad to set up this entire, for 5 years, put this together, and really screw Bollywood in its own game, as it were? I mean, we've been talking about 300 crore, 400 crore. What is that next to these guys who just come from down south and tell you that these are the number of people who will want to go and watch a film if you make it interesting enough for them to get out of home and watch it in a theater?
See, I want to tell you one thing, Mayank, which is that this phenomenon of Bahubali is not something new for me. I am born in this industry. My father came in 1928, in silent era. So out of 100 years of Indian cinema, which we celebrated a couple of years back, I take pride to say that my family has been 84 years in the business.
Right.
So having said that, I have seen in my childhood this kind of an event experience. What do you call it? Event.
Yes.
Bahubali became an event.
Right.
As a child, I remember Mughal-e Azam. When the Shapurji Palanji made the only film they made. And K. Asif, who was not even a literate person in terms of education. He was a tailor. And he had the vision, the cinematic vision, which the best of schools would not teach you. And that event, when the premiere of Mughal-e-Azam happened, I remember as a child, Maratha Mandir, where they had made the big statues of Mughal-e-Azam and all, and the prince came on an elephant. You know, it was created, that the aura was created from the word go, and special tickets were printed. People were sleeping outside the cinema halls for 2 days to get a ticket. And there were false tickets being circulated and sold in those days. So it happened earlier also, whether it was a Mughal-e-Azam, or it became Sholay,
Sure.
or it became a Jai Santoshima. Jai Santoshima, people used to keep the chappals out and go inside and watch the movie. It happened in India.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
And a person who never made a film before that.
Right.
And after that also, that was his only claim to fame, before and after. But what connect that particular film had is something which only the audience can tell. We can sit and analyze why a film became such a big hit. Oh, because it was so good and it was written so well and all, and why the picture flopped. You can give 20 reasons for that and 20 reasons why it became a success. The fact is that, I'm not saying that content is not king, yes it is, but there's something which let's be modest and humble enough to say, is something magical which we still don't know. What connects with the audiences in the way it connects, which make films like Baahubali or internationally, the blockbusters which are there.
Yeah.
There is some connect which, some magical connect which happens.
I don't know anyone in Bombay who knows or understands box office better than Sajid Khan.
That's not true.
There are other people too. You know some?
No, I
Tell
just...
me something, Sajid. Was Sholay a huge hit down south? Was Mughal-e-Azam a huge hit down south or perhaps in the east? Or
Again, what you're saying is you're talking about 25, 30 years
I'm
ago.
talking about a pan-India film.
Of course, those movies were super hits all across all centers, yeah. But see, the reason why a Baahubali does 500 crores is because, like Mukeshji rightfully said, it's an event film. And kya hota hai ke, who are the movie-going audiences? They are the movie-going audiences. You and I watch movies every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we go again every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we go again. And sometimes we decide to skip a bad film, or sometimes we decide to see a film 2 times. But it's more or less the same audience which goes to the theaters. When does a movie reach out and do 350, 400, 500 crores? When people who don't go to the cinemas, they come out of their offices, parents, moms, uncles, aunties, people working in office, nahi, ye picture ke baare mein suna, ye picture dekhni padegi. That is how the business doubles. That is what has happened with Baahubali. Like Mukeshji rightfully said, it's an event film, it did an event business.
Right.
And hopefully it's the start of things. I'm not too unsure whether a Hindi film, sooner or later in 2 or 3 years, will cross that 500 crore barrier. I mean, when Dangal did what it did in China, people could not believe that it's done it, but it's opened everyone's eyes. The same year which Baahubali opened. So, Baahubali is the start of things.
Right.
It's a good start.
Sure. Guneet, do you have a mic? So that just screws it up for you now, Guneet? Right? So a movie comes, 1,500 crore, now everybody's going to put 500 crore, nobody's going to care about your 5 crore movies, right? And then the theater is going to have all shows of that movie playing from morning till night. Where do you get the outlet for what is quote-unquote independent cinema, or at least low-budget cinema, or at least cinema that isn't just an event picture?
So, of course, I mean, I stand on the side and celebrate Baahubali. I don't think I'm a part of, or I can comment on that, but it is, for me, it's very heartening that everybody sitting here on the panel is addressing this as Indian cinema. I think a decade in this business, I have gone around showing my films and saying I'm Indian cinema, and people say Bollywood, you know?
Right.
And then you go and show them Udan, or you show them Yellow Boots, or you show them, Lunchbox, or
Right.
Masan, and they're like, but what is this? So around the world, we've been talking about Indian cinema, Indian cinema, Indian cinema, cinema from India, and this Bollywood tag that we've had. So I'm just very excited and happy, and I'm rejoicing that there is a bit of there is not bit, there is a large unity here, and that's defining Indian cinema. So I think the whole country came together to celebrate that. I wanted to point out here that when Bahubali Part 1 released, I think a couple of weeks later, a Salman Khan movie came, Bajrangi Bhaijaan, and immediately a week later came Masan. And it was around the same time. The same month was Bahubali, Bajrangi, and Masan. And of course, we thought that nobody knew the phenomena that Part 1 will be. And it became so big. But we had our shows. I mean, and Masan did what it did in its own small way. It did not cross crores and crores of money, but Masan is something that everybody in the room would remember, and even when you go out, people remember it, appreciate it, love it. It did struck a chord. And I remember having this conversation with our distributor, which was Anil, who was also the distributor of Bahubali, and how he managed to...
Anil Thadani.
Yeah,
Right.
and how he managed to balance this act with every cinema chain owner. But we did manage to carve out a niche. I don't think can even be on the same platform. It's like comparing watermelon to like a carrot. You just can't compare things. So we cannot even talk numbers and compare. But yes, if I have to talk about happiness quotient, taking this from Lunchbox, Masan did create a little dent in people's heart, and of course Bahubali did also. So yeah, we coexisted. And I think when business can run with one film making money and the other film also upping the happiness quotient of cinema and enjoying it, that's like, I think people make money and then can come back and put that in the business is the best way to
So it
be.
goes back to the
It's very
system, so long as
healthy.
it does that.
Yeah.
Amit, I'm going to come to you.
Content
Sorry, you want to
is,
finish this?
sorry,
Yeah.
so long as content is recognized across the platform.
Absolutely. About a decade ago, perhaps, is when the big studios, as it were, came down to Bombay. Small in Bombay, but huge globally. We assume that these guys have deep pockets. They're going to invest in Bollywood. But you actually ended up making the same kind of films and ensured, to some extent, that the stuff that you were making abroad is what will penetrate Indian market. Was there a ploy, as is just my conspiracy theory, that the whole idea of coming here was to actually ensure that Spider-Man goes to the last man standing rather than make a Spider-Man in India for an Indian audience? You went completely the Bollywood route when it came to making movies here, and then it took a Rajamouli down south in Hyderabad to take that big leap in terms of the big budget, while all the money was here in Bombay as well.
So when, this is Disney and we used to be UTV earlier.
Yes.
And we made Dangal as well.
Right.
So I think that, to answer your point on,
Yeah.
on Bahubali, I just want to say, because I can't not say it, I think it was a film where we all went out, and I remember whistling in the theater. I'm not that audience. I don't usually do that. And I think that the film really resonated with every single one. And just to Alok's point on ticket pricing, because I have so many things to say, and
Go for
I just
it.
want to, I think that on Dangal, for instance, we were sort of checking with, the distributor exhibition community. I think our average ticket price ended up being less than 90 rupees. So I think that really sort of makes you happy, because of course, to Sajid's point, there are some theaters, and you need to do that, right? How do you sustain that business? But the good thing is that it was good to know that the Dangal average ticket price was less than 90. To come to your point, I think, let me not talk about only our studio, let me talk about
No, I'm
all
talking about in
studios.
general, yes.
Yeah. I think that we started out, I remember, in UTV in 2003, and we made many different films, right? We made Rang De Basanti, we made Khosla Ghosla, we made Metro, we made, so many amazing movies, A Wednesday. And, they made money in those times. There were movies like Dev D, which were iconic. They may not have made money, but, they made you really, really proud. And then, later when the company integrated with Disney, I know that we made ABCD, we've made Dangal. So we made many movies that haven't worked as well.
Sure.
And we don't like to talk about those. But I don't think it's true that we went only the Bollywood way. We watched Lunchbox. We loved it. I remember Sid was in those days there, and with Karan, we distributed the film.
Right.
So I think there's no question, and especially even today, even if you look at the business, there's no question of making movies which are formula, because those movies aren't working. So if you even see what Dangal did over PK, what you may call as a, a Raju AK film, given that, Nitesh was a director who we worked with after he's done 2 films. I think that there is no question that you have to work on movies today which sort of, connect with the audience rather than movies which are formula films.
Right.
If I look at other studios as well, I think everyone's making an effort to do that. Of course, we're failing. And of course, what I love about Baahubali is that, there isn't a big star in it. We don't know Prabhas, we didn't know Rana as well as we do now, and, we whistled when we saw them on screen. And I think that that's amazing because usually it's always a big car. You look at the top 3 films every year, it's always a big Hindi star.
Right.
So it makes me personally really happy that, here's a film that nobody knows anything of. Jungle Book, not one actor.
Right.
And it's the highest English film. I mean, there's no Vin Diesel, there's no one in there. So I feel happy being in this business today that a big film doesn't, and then there's Dangal as well.
Right.
And I think people have loved Dangal not just for Amir in it, but I think it's also the film, the way the directors made it, the story. And I think that's what's
We'll
really
get to Dangal a little later in that panel discussion. Sid, you were in Disney until very recently. Tell me very honestly, if Rajamouli came to you and said, here's my script, here's the deal, here's what I want to make, here's the star in it, here are the songs, and this is the kind of money I'm demanding to make for a pan-Indian audience, would you have said yes to that? Or would any Bombay studio have yes to that?
It is a really good point that you make, because I think the budget he started with compared to the budget he ended with was 4 times what he said that he would make it for. And I think it does take balls of steel for someone to actually have the guts to say that I'm giving you a blank check, go ahead and do whatever you want to do over the next 5 years. I believe in your vision completely. I have to say that would have been a very, very difficult call for anyone to make. Right? Having said that, to your earlier point about studios, the reason that foreign studios came to India and realized that they could not sustain themselves just trying to bring their imports in was because Hindi movies is a different kettle of fish altogether. So I don't think the solution would have been to come and try to make Spider-Man in India, because we have Salman Khan and he is our Spider-Man. Right? So we need to do stuff. I mean, the idea was that studios realized that they'd spent 60, 70 years distributing the Hollywood movies here, but it wasn't going beyond 10% of the box office. So to get into the game, they had to make Hindi movies the way Hindi movies are made and hopefully invest more in the industry. Now, would they be able to, a Fox did it with something like a Titanic, right? Where they just backed James Cameron and said, go out and do it, and that budget went sky high. But then they got Paramount to come and back them up. And they regretted that later because they actually had to then share the profits with Paramount. But they said that we'll cap whatever you guys put in, but we'll have to keep going up, sort of depending on the over budget. So it is a tough call for studios to make. And I dare say, I don't think Baahubali would have been able to be made within the studio system, because this was one of those movies that was just so out of left field. You needed a single person to be able to back that vision and then just to say, I'm going to write you a blank check.
But having crossed the threshold, do you think the studio system would be accepting now because they've just seen what is possible?
I think really, to Sid's point, a film like that genuinely is like now. Sorry?
Mic's not working? Close it.
I mean, if you look at Baahubali after, it's much, I'm sure Rajamouli has been courted by every studio in the country right now.
Right.
But if you're asking the question that before release, would it have happened now?
Wouldn't have. Right.
I mean,
So
it's
they
so,
need to-
and let's not forget that his previous movies, why are we talking only about Baahubali? I remember we went to the theater to watch Makhi. I remember we went to the theater to watch all his previous movies, and he's done phenomenally well.
Yes.
Actually, pretty much like a Raju, he has, every film that he does really, really well. So, but I'm not quite sure if, at that point,
Right.
any one of us would have